Hello students, welcome to my channel Learning History Made Easy. In today's video, we will be discussing about Jainism, its doctrine, spread and contribution. Before going into the video, if anyone is seeing the channel for the first time or if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe and share it with your friends, and also click the bell button to receive notifications whenever I upload new videos. So without wasting time, let us get into today's video. So as I have told, today's video that is about the origin of Jainism. So in today's video, we will be seeing about Jainism, its origin, its doctrines, and how did Jainism spread to different parts, and also we will be seeing about the contribution of Jainism. So first, let us start with the origin of Jainism. See, the origin of Jainism is shrouded in mystery. See, there has been little different theories regarding the origin of Jainism. The Jainas believed that their most important religious teacher, Mahavira. So the most important religious teacher of Jainas was Mahavira. They believed that Mahavira had 23 predecessors. Okay, 23 predecessors were there for Mahavira. That was the belief of Jainas. So they believed that Mahavira had 23 predecessors, and these 23 predecessors were called as Tirthankaras. Tirthankaras. Okay, so Mahavira's 23 predecessors, they were called as Tirthankaras. And some of the Jains believe that in all these Tirthankaras, Rishabhadeva or Rishabhanatha was the first Tirthankara. Rishabhadeva was the first Tirthankara or the teacher of Jainism. Tirthankara means a teacher of Jainism. The earliest important teachings of Jainism are attributed to Parshvanatha. Parshvanatha, and Parshvanatha is believed to be the 23rd Tirthankara. Okay, so once more I will tell, the Jainas believed that Mahavira had 23 predecessors and they were called as Tirthankaras, and some of the Jains believe that Rishabhadeva was the first Tirthankara or teacher of Jainism. The earliest important teachings of Jainism are attributed to Parshvanatha, and Parshvanatha is believed to be the 23rd Tirthankara who hailed from Banaras. Okay, it is believed that Parshvanatha hailed from Banaras, and he abandoned his royal life and became an ascetic or a sannyasi. And Parshvanatha, he enjoined on his disciples 4 great vows. Okay, so here Parshvanatha, he enjoined on his disciples 4 great vows. Which are the 4 great vows? One is non-injury. Non-injury, that is ahimsa. The second is truthfulness. Truthfulness, that is satya. Then non-stealing. Non-stealing, that is asteya. And non-possession, that is aparigraha. Okay, so these 4 vows, 4 great vows of Jainism was enjoined or given to his disciples by Parshvanatha, which is that ahimsa, satya, asteya, aparigraha, that is non-injury, truthfulness, non-stealing and non-possessions. So these were the 4 important vows of Jainism given by Parshvanatha. However, it was his spiritual successor Vardhamana Mahavira. So his successor, Parshvanatha's successor, was Vardhamana Mahavira, who was a real founder of Jainism. Real founder of Jainism. And Vardhamana Mahavira, he added another vow, that is Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya was added by Vardhamana Mahavira. Okay, so we have already 4 great vows, that is Satya, Ahimsa, Asteya and Aparigraha. aparigraha. These four were given by Parshvanatha, and plus one more was added by Vardhamana Mahavira, that is Brahmacharya. So these became the great vows of Jainism. And the Jainas and the Tirthankaras are known by their names and symbols. So we know that there are total 23 Tirthankaras, and Vardhamana Mahavira was the next Tirthankara after the spiritual successor of Parshvanatha. And these Tirthankaras are known by their names and symbols. Okay, they are known by their names and symbols. So we studied that Rishabhadeva was the first Tirthankara. So Rishabha, that is bull. Again, one more Tirthankara, Ajitha-elephant. Then Parshvanatha, hooded snake. Symbols are these, okay, hooded snakes. Then Mahavira-lion. So like that, the Tirthankaras were known by names and symbols. Rishabha-bull, Ajitha-elephant, Parshvanatha-hooded snake, Mahavira-lion. So these were some of the points regarding the origin of the religion. Now let us see about Vardhamana Mahavira. Vardhamana Mahavira. So if you see about Vardhamana Mahavira, he was born in 540 BC in a village Kundagrama near Vaishali. Kundagrama near Vaishali. That was his birthplace. His father of Mahavira, his father's name was Siddhartha. He was the head of the famous Kshatriya clan. Okay, head of the famous Kshatriya clan. So that was his father. And his mother, Trishala was the sister of Licchavi-chief. Okay, she was the sister of Licchavi-chief Chetaka, whose daughter, this Licchavi-chief's daughter Chellana, okay, I think you remember Licchavi-chief's daughter Chellana was wedded to Bimbisara. So father Siddhartha, head of Kshatriya clan, mother Trishala Devi was a sister of Licchavi-chief Chetaka, whose daughter Chellana was wedded to Bimbisara. Okay, so in this way, Mahavira's family was connected with the royal family of Magadha. They had a Magadha connection. Why? Because Trishala Devi was a sister of Licchavi-chief, and this Licchavi-chief's daughter was married to Bimbisara. That is how they have a Magadha connection. Mahavira was married to Yashoda, by whom he had a daughter Annoja. Now Mahavira, he was married to Yashoda, and they had a daughter Annoja. Okay, so this was the basic family history of Vardhamana Mahavira. Now, how did he move on into becoming a sannyasi? In the beginning, Mahavira led the life of a householder. In the beginning, he was a normal householder, but he was in search of truth. Okay, in search of truth. So in search of truth, he abandoned his family, and that incident happened when he was 30 years old. Okay, when he was 30 years old, he abandoned his family and became an ascetic. And after that, he wandered in different places for 12 years, wandered for 12 years from place to place. After that, in the 13th year, he was 42 years old during that time, he attained omniscience, that is he became enlightened, or we can say kaivalya. Okay, he attained enlightenment at kaivalya, enlightenment or kaivalya at a place called as Jrimbikagrama. Okay, that was where he attained enlightenment. So when he, that Kaivalya, that attaining of omniscience, after that he came to be called as Kevalin. Kevalin, that is omniscient, that is one who attained enlightenment, or he was called as Jina, that is conqueror, or he was called as Mahavira, that is the great hero. Great hero. So Kevalin, Jina, Mahavira, all was the names or the specialities given to Mahavira, and his followers came to be called as Jainas. Okay, because he was called as Jina, his followers came to be called as Jainas. He propagated his religion for 30 years. Okay, so he propagated his religion for 30 years, and his mission led him to, in different areas even, that is Kosala, Magadha, Mithila, Champa, and in different places he travelled for propagating his religion. And he passed away finally. He passed away at the age of 72 at a place called as Pavapuri. Okay, Pavapuri near modern Rajgriha. There he attained nirvana, that is he passed away. So this was about Vardhamana Mahavira. So now just let us see the points till now whatever we have studied. The origin of Jainism is shrouded in mystery. The Jainas believed that their most important religious teacher Mahavira had 23 predecessors who were called Tirthankaras. Some Jainas believe that Rishabhadeva was the first Tirthankara or teacher of Jainism. The earliest important teachings of Jainism are attributed to Parshvanatha, the 23rd Tirthankara, who hailed from Benares, abandoned royal life and became an ascetic. He enjoined on his disciples the four great vows of non-injury-ahimsa, truthfulness-satya, non-stealing-asteya, non-possession-aparigraha. However, it was his spiritual successor, Vardhamana Mahavira, who was the real founder of Jainism. Mahavira added the vow of brahmacharya. The Tirthankaras are known by their names and symbols: Rishabha-bull, Ajitha-elephant, Parshvanatha-hooded snake, and Mahavira-lion. Vardhamana Mahavira. He was born in 540 BC in a village Kundagrama near Vaishali. His father Siddhartha was a head of a famous Kshatriya clan, and his mother Trishula was a sister of the Licchavi-chief Chetaka, whose daughter Chellana was wedded to Bimbisara. Thus Mahavira's family was connected with the royal family of Magadha. Mahavira was married to Yashoda, by whom he had a daughter Annoja. In the beginning, Mahavira led the life of a householder, but in search of truth, he abandoned his family at the age of 30 years and became an ascetic. He wandered for 12 years from place to place. In the 13th year, at the age of 42, he attained omniscience-kaivalya-Jrimbikagrama. He was now a Kevalin-omniscient, Jina-conquerer, Mahavira the great hero. His followers came to be known as Jainas. He propagated his religion for 30 years, and his mission took him to Kosala, Magadha, Mithila, Champa, and elsewhere. He passed away at the age of 72 in 468 BC at a place called Pavapuri near modern Rajgir. So now let us move on to the doctrines of Jainism. Doctrines of Jainism. Jainism taught 5 doctrines. So there was 5 main doctrines for Jainism. That is, already we have studied the 5 vows. So that is, first one, do not commit violence. Do not commit violence. That is ahimsa. The second one, if you see, is do not tell lie. Do not tell lie. That is satya. Okay. Now the third one, do not hoard. That is asteya. Now that is, do not steal or do not hoard, asteya. Next one, do not hoard asteya, non-possession. Next one is do not steal, that is aparigraha. Aparigraha, do not take others' property, aparigraha. And the last one is the one added by Vardhamana Mahavira, brahmacharya. So these were the 5 main doctrines of Jainism: ahimsa, satya, asteya, aparigraha and brahmacharya. So these were the main doctrines of Jainism. It is said that the 5th doctrine was added by Mahavira. We have already discussed that, and other 4 were by previous teachers. Jainism attached utmost importance to ahimsa. So the most important doctrine was ahimsa, or non-injury of living beings. Jainism recognized the existence of God. Now Jainism, it recognized the existence of God, but it placed God lower than Jina. So according to them, God was placed lower than Jina. Okay, Jina, Vardhamana Mahavira was known as Jina or conqueror. So here they believed in the existence of God, but God was placed lower than Jina. Mahavira did not condemn Varna system, and according to him, a person is born in high or low Varna in consequence of the sins or the virtues acquired by him in previous birth. So according to Vardhamana Mahavira, Varna is because a high or low Varna is a consequence of sins or virtues. Okay, sins or virtues acquired by a person in previous birth. The previous birth, sins or virtues is the reason for high or low Varna according to Mahavira. In his opinion, by leading a pure and meritorious life, members of low caste can achieve liberation. Liberation can be achieved by leading a pure and meritorious life. This was the concept of Vardhamana Mahavira. If you lead a pure and meritorious life, a lower caste person can achieve liberation. And for such a liberation, for achieving such a liberation, or we can say moksha, no ritual is necessary. No ritual is necessary for this, and it can be obtained only through this liberation can be obtained only through right knowledge, right faith and right action. So to achieve liberation, 3 things are important: right knowledge, right faith and right action. These 3 are called as the 3 jewels or triratnas of Jainism. Triratnas of Jainism. Okay, so to attain liberation, no ritual is needed. Only by leading a pure and meritorious life one can achieve liberation, and for that purpose no rituals are needed. What is needed? Right knowledge, right faith and right action are needed, and these are called as the 3 jewels or triratnas of Jainism. So we studied about 5 vows and 3 jewels of Jainism. Now although Parshvanatha, Mahavira's predecessor, asked his followers to cover upper and lower portion of the body. Now Parshvanatha, the 23rd Tirthankara, had asked the people to cover their body, that is upper and lower body. Mahavira asked them to discard their clothing altogether. Mahavira was different here. He asked the people to discard their clothing altogether. So here there was 2 different concepts of Parshvanatha and Mahavira. Parshvanatha asked the people to cover their upper and lower portion of body, but Mahavira asked them to discard their clothing altogether. And Jainism, according to Jainism, they prohibited war. Okay, the practice of war was prohibited. Why? We know that ahimsa was their main virtue. So they prohibited war and sometimes even agriculture, because both involved killing of living beings. And eventually they principally confined themselves to trade and mercantile activities. Trade and mercantile activities. That was the main thing which they were engaged in, because war and agriculture and all will involve killing or hurting living beings. So they mostly involved in trade and mercantile activities. So this was about the main doctrines of Jainism. So just let us see the points once more. The doctrines of Jainism. Jainism taught 5 doctrines: do not commit violence, do not lie, do not hoard, do not steal, and observe brahmacharya. It is said that the 5th doctrine was added by Mahavira and the other 4 were taken over by him from previous teachers. Jainism attached the utmost importance to ahimsa or non-injury of living beings. Jainism recognized the existence of the gods but placed them lower than the Jina. Mahavira did not condemn the Varna system, and according to him, a person is born in a high or a low Varna in consequence of the sins or the virtues acquired by him in the previous birth. In his opinion, by leading pure and meritorious life, members of lower caste can achieve liberation. No ritual is necessary for such liberation, and it can be obtained through right knowledge, right faith, and right action. These 3 are considered to be the 3 jewels or triratnas of Jainism. Although Parshvanatha, Mahavira's predecessor, had asked his followers to cover the upper and lower portion of their bodies, Mahavira asked them to discard their clothing altogether. Jainism prohibited the practice of war and even agriculture for its followers because both involved killing of living beings. Eventually, they principally confined themselves to trade and mercantile activities. Now, let us move on to the next topic, that is spread of Jainism. In order to spread the teaching of Jainism, Mahavira organized an order of his followers. So here, to spread Jainism to spread, Mahavira organized an order of his followers. Okay, an order of his followers were organized for the spread of Jainism, and in this order, both men and women were admitted. He preached his teachings. Okay, Mahavira preached his teachings in Prakrit language. So this was the language of the common people, and Jainism gradually spread into South and West India, where Brahmanical religion was weak. So in South and West India, Brahmanical religion was weak, and Jainism spread to these places. And in South India, the spread of Jainism in Karnataka is attributed to Chandragupta Maurya. Chandragupta Maurya was a person responsible for spread of Jainism in Karnataka. The emperor became a Jaina and gave up his throne and spent his last days in Karnataka. So here Chandragupta Maurya, he became a Jaina, he gave up his throne, and he spent his last days in Karnataka as an ascetic. Okay, so that is how Jainism spread in Karnataka because of Chandragupta Maurya. Another cause of Jainism in South India. So if you see the cause of Jainism in South India, another cause was a great famine. Okay, a great famine, that this famine lasted for 12 years. Okay, this famine lasted for 12 years, and this took place in Magadha. This famine took place in Magadha, and it happened 200 years after the death of Mahavira. This lasted for 12 years, and here, in order to protect themselves, when there was famine, people wanted to protect themselves. So in order to protect themselves, many Jaina monks, there were many Jaina monks, and in order to protect themselves, they went to south. And these Jaina monks went to south under the leadership of Bhadrabahu. Okay, and the rest of them stayed back in Magadha. Some of them went to south and some of them stayed in Magadha, and those who stayed in Magadha under the leadership of Sthalabahu. Sthalabahu. So once more I will tell, in South India a famine happened in Magadha almost 200 years after the death of Mahavira, and this famine lasted for 12 years. In order to protect themselves, many Jaina monks went to South India and were South India under the leadership of Bhadrabahu. But the rest of them, they stayed back in Magadha only under the leadership of Sthalabahu. Okay. At the end of the famine, they returned to Magadha. But after the famine got over, these people, they returned to Magadha. But when they returned to Magadha, what happened was, there was difference of opinion, differences with the local Jainas. Local Jainas means those who stayed back under Sthalabahu were the local Jainas. So these people, when they returned back, differences started to happen with the local Jainas. And the changes that took place in the code of conduct of the followers of Sthalabahu led to the division. So this difference of opinion led to the division of Jainas. Okay, Jainas were divided, and the first group was Digambaras. Digambaras, they were the sky-clad, okay, or they were naked, according to what Mahavira said, and they were the people who moved to the southern, okay, that was the Digambaras. Next was Svetambaras, who was white clad, that is, they wore white clothes, and these people were the Magadhans, that is, those who stayed back in Magadha under Sthalabahu. So this is how division of Jainism happened. So difference of opinion happened when these people returned to Magadha, and they were divided into two Digambaras, that is sky-clad or naked, that is those who went to south. Next is Svetambaras, that is white-clad, that is those who stayed back in Magadha. So next we will see about the councils of Jainism. The first Jain Council was held at Pataliputra under the leadership of Sthalabahu. Okay, under the leadership of Sthalabahu, the first Jain council held in Pataliputra, that is in the beginning of 3rd century BC, and it resulted in the compilation of the 12 Angas. Okay, in this Jain council, the 12 Angas were compiled, which replaced the lost 14 Purvas. So the 12 Angas were compiled in the first Jain council held at Pataliputra. Now let us see about the second Jain council. The second Jain council was held at Vallabhi in Gujarat. Okay, Vallabhi in Gujarat in the 5th century AD, and this was held by Svetambaras. That is those who went to south. The Svetambaras, that is those who were staying back in Magadha, that is Svetambaras, that is white clad. Okay, so second Jain council was held at Vallabhi in Gujarat by the Svetambaras, and this resulted in the final compilation of 12 Angas and 12 Upangas. That is 12 Angas, final compilation, and 12 Upa-Angas. Okay, so the second Jain council resulted in the final compilation of the 12 Angas and 12 Upa-Angas. And then Jainism also spread to Kalinga in Orissa. Jainism spread to Kalinga in Orissa in 4th century BC, and there it enjoyed the patronage of Kalinga king Kharavela. Okay, Jainism enjoyed the patronage of Kalinga king Kharavela. In the 2nd and 1st century, it seems to have reached even Tamil Nadu, southern districts of Tamil Nadu also. So, like this, Jainism spread into different parts. Now, in later centuries, Jainism even penetrated to places like Malwa, Gujarat, Rajasthan, etc. Okay, so different places Jainism started to spread. It's penetrated to different places like Malwa, Gujarat, Rajasthan, etc. And Mahavira himself founded Jaina church. The Jaina church was founded himself by Mahavira. And he had 11 disciples. Mahavira had 11 ardent disciples. They were called as Ganadharas. Okay, that is head of schools, Ganadharas. There were 7 disciples for Mahavira. Now let us see the contributions of Jainism. Contributions. Okay. Jainism made first serious attempt to mitigate the evils of Varna order and ritualistic Vedic religion. And the early Jainas, if you see the early Jainas discarded the Sanskrit language, and principally this Sanskrit language was patronized by Brahmanas. So early Jainas discarded Sanskrit language and instead they adopted Prakrit. Prakrit was the language of the common people. So they adopted Prakrit, the language of the common people, to preach their doctrine. The religious literature, the Jainas' religious literature was written in the Ardhamagadhi form of Prakrit. Ardhamagadhi form of Prakrit. Okay, so the religious literature of Jainas were written in the Ardhamagadhi form of Prakrit. And the texts were finally compiled in 6th century in Gujarat at a place called as Vallabhi. Finally, this religious texts were compiled in a place called as Vallabhi in Gujarat. Okay, and the adoption of Prakrit helped the growth of the language and literature. So when Prakrit was adopted, the Prakrit language started to grow. Okay, the adoption of Prakrit helped the growth of Prakrit language and literature. So they discarded Sanskrit and they adopted the language of the common people. Now the Jaina literature, if you see the Jaina literature, it comprises of epics, Puranas, novels, drama, etc. So the Jaina literature comprises of epics, Puranas, novel, drama, etc. And they compose the earliest important work, that is Apabhramsha, and prepared its first grammar also. Apabhramsha and its first grammar. These were also composed by the Jainas. They also contributed to the growth of Kannada, in which they wrote extensively. Even they wrote in Kannada also, and that also helped in the development. Now the sacred literature of Svetambaras, written in Ardhamagadhi, we told that it was written in Ardhamagadhi. So if you see the sacred literature of Svetambaras were written in Ardhamagadhi form of Prakrit. It is classified into 12 Angas, 12 Upangas, 10 Prakirna and 6 Cheda Sutra and 4 Mula Sutra. Okay, so the sacred literature of Svetambaras is divided into 12 Angas, then there are 12 Upangas, 10 Prakirnas, 6 Cheda Sutra and 4 Mula Sutras. So I am not going into the details of all these, just understand that the sacred literature of Svetambaras was classified into 12 Angas, 12 Upangas, 10 Prakirna, 6 Cheda Sutra and 4 Mula Sutra. Now if you see the non-canonical work, it consisted of commentaries, then there were stories, then historical works, history, semi-history, romantic work, etc. Okay, romantic work, etc. That was the non-canonical work. The canonical work, sacred literature of Svetambaras were there, and the non-canonical work consisted of commentaries, stories, historical work, semi-historical work, romantic work, religious lyrics, etc. The Jainas further possess an extensive poetic literature. So they also have a poetic literature. They have an extensive poetic literature called as Prabandhas and Charitras. Okay, they have a poetic literature called as Prabandhas and Charitras. So that is about the Jaina literature. So just we will go through the points which we have studied till now. Spread of Jainism. In order to spread the teachings of Jainism, Mahavira organized an order of his followers that admitted both men and women. He preached his teachings in Prakrit, the language of the common people. Jainism gradually spread into South and West India, where the Brahmanical religion was weak. The spread of Jainism in Karnataka is attributed to Chandragupta Maurya. The emperor became a Jaina, gave up his throne and spent the last years of his life in Karnataka as a Jaina ascetic. Another cause of the spread of Jainism in South India is said to be the great famine that took place in Magadha 200 years after the death of Mahavira. The famine lasted for 12 years, and in order to protect themselves, many Jaina monks went to the south under the leadership of Bhadrabahu, but the rest of them stayed back in Magadha under the leadership of Sthalabahu. At the end of the famine, they returned to Magadha, where they developed differences with the local Jainas. The changes that took place in the code of conduct of the followers of Sthalabahu led to the division of Jainas into Digambaras, sky-clad or naked, southern, and Svetambaras, white-clad Magadhans. The first Jain council was held at Patliputra under the leadership of Sthalabahu in the beginning of the 3rd century BC and resulted in the compilation of 12 Angas to replace the lost 14 Purvas. Digambaras boycotted the council and refused to accept its decision. The second council was held at Vallabhi in Gujarat in the 5th century AD by the Svetambaras and resulted in the final compilation of the 12 Angas and 12 Upa-Angas. Jainism spread to Kalinga in Orissa in the 4th century BC. It enjoyed the patronage of the Kalinga king Kharavela. In the 2nd and 1st century BC, it seems to have reached the southern districts of Tamil Nadu. In the later centuries, Jainism penetrated to Malwa, Gujarat and Rajasthan. Mahavira himself founded the Jaina church. He had 11 ardent disciples, Ganadharas. Contribution of Jainism. Jainism made the first serious attempt to mitigate the evils of the Varna order and the ritualistic Vedic religion. The early Jainas discarded the Sanskrit language, principally patronized by the Brahmanas. They adopted instead Prakrit, the language of the common people, to preach their doctrine. Their religious literature were written in Ardhamagadhi-form of Prakrit. The texts were finally compiled in the 6th century AD in Gujarat at a place called Vallabhi, a great center of education. The adoption of Prakrit by the Jainas helped the growth of this language and its literature. The Jainas composed the earliest important works in Apabhramsha and prepared its first grammar. Jain literature comprises epics, Puranas, novels and drama. They also contributed to the growth of Kannada, in which they wrote extensively. The sacred literature of the Svetambaras, written in the Ardhamagadhi-form of Prakrit, may be classified into 12 Angas, 12 Upangas, 10 Prakirna, 6 Cheda Sutra and 4 Mula Sutras. The non-canonical work consists of commentaries, stories, historical works, semi-historical work, romantic work and religious lyrics. The Jainas further possess an extensive poetic literature called Prabandhas and Charitras. So now let us move on to the next topic, that is Jaina architecture. Jaina architecture. Okay. The gigantic statue of Bahubali. So if you think of Jaina architecture, the first thing which comes to your mind is the gigantic statue of Bahubali. It is called as the Gomateshwara statue at Shravana-Belagola in Karnataka, and also the Karkal in Mysore. These two are among the wonders of the world. The gigantic statue of Bahubali Gomateshwara at Shravana-Belgola and Karkal in Mysore. These are the wonders of the world. Then the image of a Tirthankara, from Lohanipura, that is Patna. Lohanipura, Patna. It is dating back to the Mauryan period. This is one of the earliest Jaina figures. Okay, if you see the earliest Jaina figures, there is an image of a Tirthankara from Lohanipura, Patna. It is dating back to the Mauryan period. Then we have the Hathigumbha caves. Hathigumbha caves of Kharavela. And the Khandagiri and Udaygiri caves of Orissa. There is two caves of Khandagiri and Udaygiri, all these of Orissa, contain early relics of Jainism. So the Hathigumbha caves of Kharavela, Khandagiri-Udaygiri caves of Orissa, all these contain early relics of Jainism, and they can be said as the contribution of Jains to architecture. Now, if you see the Ellora caves in Maharashtra, and this has Jaina reliefs. The Ellora caves in Maharashtra with Jaina reliefs, works, statues that also represent example of architecture and sculpture of this period. Then Mathura. Okay, Mathura was a great center of Jaina art, and this was during the Kushana period. Okay, during the Kushana period, Mathura was the great center of Jaina art. And the Jaina temples and Ranakpur and the Dilwara temple at Mount Abu, both in Rajasthan. Okay, both in Rajasthan. These are products of super Jaina craftsmanship. So the Jaina temples at Ranakpur and the Dilwara temple at Mount Abu, both in Rajasthan, are the products of Jaina craftsmanship. So all these are the examples of Jaina architecture. So just let us go through the points we have studied. Jaina architecture. The gigantic statue of Bahubali called Gomateshwara at Shravana-Belgola and Karkal in Mysore are among the wonders of the world. The image of a Tirthankara from Lohanipura, Patna, dating back to Mauryan period, is one of the earliest Jaina figures. The Hathigumbha caves of Kharavela and the Khandagiri and Udaygiri caves of Orissa contain early relics. Ellora in Maharashtra with Jaina relief work and statues represent the example of excellent architecture and sculpture of this period. Mathura was a great center of Jaina art during the Kushana period. The Jaina temples at Ranakpur and Dilwara temple at Mount Abu, both in Rajasthan, are products of superb Jaina craftsmanship. So I hope you have understood all the points very clearly. In case of any doubts, you can ask in the comment section. And also, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Your likes and shares will be of a great encouragement for me to make more and more videos. So I hope to see you all soon in the coming video. Thank you for watching.